Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Naif Al Saif, and the topic I shall be presenting you today is ethics in business. My presentation begins with introduction to ethics and is followed by basic concepts, ethics in business, and ethics and corporate social responsibility. A comparison will be made between individual and corporate ethics, which shall be followed by a case example. Finally, I shall be concluding with the future of ethics in business. Peter Singer in Encyclopedia Britannica defines ethics as what is morally good or bad, right and wrong. Its subject consists of the fundamental issues of practical decision making, and its major concerns include the nature of ultimate value and the standards by which human actions can be judged, right or wrong. Ethics help an individual in deciding that the act which he or she is committing is moral or immoral. They also tell an individual that whether his or her act is socially desirable or undesirable. Ethics can be derived from numerous sources. Religious beliefs include the ethics concerning religious practices. Community standards present ethics pertaining to the society. Educational experiences enrich a person with the learning of general ethical standards. Lastly, family practices mold an individual according to the ethics which prevail in his family. In the corporate and business world, ethics are those standards and principles which guide an employee's behavior. They help an employee in differentiating what is right and wrong, and what is acceptable and unacceptable within an organization. When an employee follows the organization code of ethics, he or she finds himself more efficient and productive at work. Also, her manager is not displeased when that employee behaves accordingly. These code of ethics are set up by the stakeholders within an organization. These may include an organization's managers, executives, employees, customers, and suppliers. The major ethical issues which are faced in the field of marketing, human resource, and finance include the employee's conflicts of interest. This means that what appears beneficial for the organization does not benefit the employee personally. Therefore, when an employee seeks for his personal gain, he or she puts the organization at stake to achieve it. Moreover, an element of honesty and fairness also comes into play. When honesty and fairness is not practiced by an employee, it raises several ethical issues in the business environment. There is also a lack of communication, which takes place at the workplace. This results in misunderstandings and misinterpretations which hinders the organization's overall performance. Lastly, the organizational relationships are exploited by the employees, which also bring up severe ethical concerns. There are several myths which prevail regarding business ethics in the real world. The foremost of them is the concern that there are no rewards for being ethical, and therefore why should one waste his efforts in being ethical when it's not to be recognized? This is incorrect, as being ethical bestows internal satisfaction to an employee. Moreover, it is also widely believed that ethical behavior hinders one's success. This is a misperception, as ethical practices have no concern with being successful or unsuccessful. People also think that unethical behavior is a part of business. It is also widely seen that being unethical is easier than being ethical. Apart from this, people believe that they can cheat and it's not wrong as far as they do not get caught while cheating. This is highly unethical. Oh. So ethics and in the context of corporate social responsibility mean that the society in the whole should be benefited from the ethical practices of a business. It includes many aspects which favor the society, such as product safety standards. The manufacturing of the product should not harm the employees. They should remain safe while producing the product using complex machines or otherwise. Moreover, The product should not harm its consumers if properly used according to the instructions. Next is the advertising content. It means that falsifying advertising should not be done, and only what is true about the product should be communicated through advertisements. Also, unauthorized payment should not be made or received by any organization. The employee privacy should be maintained, and any confidential information which can be used against an employee should not be exposed by the company. The working environment provided by the company to its employees should be productive and according to the standards. Lastly, the environmental issues should be addressed, and a company should not aim to violate them. Some common unethical acts, as reported by employers, include falsifying records. It means that company records should be maintained in the true form rather than manipulating them in the interest of the employee or in the company. Another unethical practice prevailing in organizations is lying of employees to their supervisors. Employees often conceal the truth in fear of punishment or bad reputation in front of their supervisors. Another common unethical practice in organizations is drug abuse. Employers and employees use alcohol and other drugs which hinder their efficiency and negatively impact their attitude with others. Improper accounting practices are also used, which include window dressing the figures to turn them into the favor of a company. Employees also discriminate between one another in terms of gender, race, social class, and creed. Lastly, male employees sexually harass female employees at few organizations if they do not listen to them. In the context of a competitive market environment, the unethical practices which are discussed in the last slides are justified by the employees. The reasons they give to be unethical include meeting the deadline. The employees use unethical means to complete their task in the given deadline. Moreover, the employees use unethical means to complete their task and in the given deadline. Moreover, the employees also justify their being unethical in an attempt to help the organization survive. They say that if they hadn't been unethical, the organization would have faced severe loss. The employees also use unethical means to meet the overly aggressive financial objectives. The objectives were said to make them productive and efficient, but they end up using unethical means to fulfill them. Employees are also found justifying their unethical practices by saying that others do the same, so they also indulge in it. Lastly, the presence of resisting competitive threats is also used by employees to cover their unethical practices. Now I shall analyze ethics in terms of their being individual or corporate level. Personal value possessed by every employee determine whether he or she is ethical or not. They are at individual level and differ from one employee to the other. The supervisor influence affects all the employees working under a supervisor. It is of a corporate level and primarily judges whether all the employees under the same supervisor turned out to be unethical or not. The influence of senior management is also of corporate level and affects a large group of employees and their ethical practices. Performance pressures are also corporate level and affect employees being ethical or not. The lack of consequences is also corporate level, and they determine whether an ethical employee will be accounted for it or not. Peer pressure is individual ethics, as employees have different peer groups, and not all employees go unethical under peer pressure. Lastly, the internal drive to succeed is at individual level, and employees sometimes perform unethical practices so as to get success. A research conducted by Farrell and Marsh in 2005 reveals interesting facts in the form of principle of employees' conduct. They state that there are 10% of the employees who follow their own set of beliefs and are unaffected by the ethical practices prevailing in the organization. Next, there are 40% employees who try to follow the company policy, keeping aside the fact that they are successful in doing it or not. But this group of employees at least try to abide by the organizational rules and regulations. Then there are other 40% employees who go along with the flow and start doing the same practices what masses are doing in an organization. They do not evaluate those practices, rather just start acting upon them. The last 10% of employees work strategically and take advantage of low-risk situation by being unethical. They do this when they are sure that they wouldn't get cut. Moving toward the future of ethics in the corporate world, there are some components which should be kept intact to regulate ethical practices in organizations. The foremost of them is honesty. Honesty is the quality to be truthful, sincere, and free of deceit. It means that implementation of ethics should be morally virtuous. Secondly, integrity, the quality of having strong moral principles. It means that ethics should be upheld and undivided. Thirdly, transparency means open to public scrutiny. Ethics should be applied in transparency in organizations. Then comes accountability, which means the responsibility to be accountable to everyone. Employees who do not abide by the ethics should be required to justify their actions. Next is the employees who report regarding unethical practices should be protected and kept in confidentiality. Lastly, objectivity means that ethical judgment should not be influenced by personal feeling or opinion while considering and representing facts. These are the references which aided me in developing this presentation. And this was all from my side, and thank you for your time and attention.